name was Salmon, like the fish, first name Susie. I was 14 when I was murdered on December 6, 1973. In newspaper photos of missing girls from the 70s all looked like me. White girls with mousy brown hair. This was before kids of all genders and races started appearing on milk cartons or in the Daily Mail. It was still back when people believed that things like that didn't happen. The Lovely Bones by Alicia Sebold is about a teenage girl who is murdered. More than 2,000 children are murdered in the United States alone every single day. Most people hear about these things and turn the other way. We want to believe that these are faraway nightmares that would never happen to us, but there are 2,000 families a day that this tragedy happens to. My murderer was a man from our neighborhood. My mother liked his border flowers and my father talked to him once about fertilizer. But on December 6, 1973, it was snowing, and he took a shortcut through the cornfield back from the junior high. It was dark out because the days were shorter in the winter. 6 feet from where Mr. Harvey stood, I stuck my tongue out to taste a snowflake. "Don't let me startle you," said Mr. Harvey. Of course, in a cornfield, in the dark, I was startled. "Mr. Harvey," I said, "you're the older Salmon girl, right?" "Yes. How are your folks?" "Fine," I said. I was cold, but the natural authority of his age and the added fact that he was a neighbor rooted me to the spot. "I built something back here," he said. "Would you like to see?" "I'm sort of cold, Mr. Harvey," I said, "and my mom likes me home before dark." "It's after dark, Susie." I wish now that I had known this was weird. I had never told him my name. Mr. Harvey would later say these words to my mother when he ran into her on the street. "I heard about the horrible, horrible tragedy. What was your daughter's name again?" "Susie," my mother said, bracing up under the weight of it. Mr. Harvey told her the usual. "I hope they get the bastard. I'm sorry for your loss." Mr. Harvey said it would only take a minute, so I followed him a little further into the cornfield. "I've made a little hiding place," said Mr. Harvey. He stopped and turned to me. "I don't see anything," I said. I was aware that Mr. Harvey was looking at me strangely. "You should be more observant, Susie," he said. I felt like observing my way out of there, but I didn't. Why didn't I? "Try again," Mr. Harvey said, and he squatted down and knocked against the ground. "What's that?" I asked. It felt harder even than frozen earth, which was pretty hard. "It's wood," Mr. Harvey said. "It keeps the entrance from collapsing. Other than that, it's all made out of earth." "What is it?" I asked. I was no longer cold or weirded out by the look he had given me. I was like I was in science class. I was curious. "Come and see." It was awkward to get into, but I was so amazed by how he had made it that the awkwardness of getting in and out of the hole wasn't even on my mind. "This is neato," I said to Mr. Harvey. I completely reverted. I hadn't used the word neato in public since elementary school. It was the size of a small room, the mudroom in our house, say. I could almost end up in it, but Mr. Harvey had to stoop. He'd created a bench along the sides, by the way he had dug it out. He immediately sat down. "Look around," he said. There was a mirror on the shelf, and a razor and a shaving cream. I thought that was odd. Wouldn't he do that at home? My father had a nice way of describing people like him. The man's a character, that's all. So I guess I was thinking that Mr. Harvey was a character, and I liked the room, and I wanted to know how he had built it. But by the time the Gilbert's dog found my elbow 3 days later, Mr. Harvey had closed it up. I was in transit during this. I didn't get to see him sweat it out. By the time I popped up with enough wherewithal to look down at the goings-ons on earth, I was more concerned with my family than anything else. My mother sat on a hard chair by the front door with her mouth open, her pale face paler than I had ever seen it, her blue eyes staring. My father was driven into motion. He wanted to know details and to comb the cornfield along with the cops. Mr. Harvey asked me if I would like a refreshment. That was how he had put it. I said I had to go home. "Be polite and have a Coke," he said. "I'm sure the other kids would." "What other kids?" "I built this for the kids in the neighborhood. I thought it could be some sort of clubhouse." I don't think I believed this even then. We had read about men like him in health class, men who never married and ate frozen meals every night and were so afraid of rejection they didn't even know a pet. I felt sorry for him. "Okay," I said. "I'll have a Coke." In a little while, he said, "Aren't you warm, Susie? Why don't you take off your parka?" I did. After this, he said, "You're very pretty, Susie." "Thanks," I said, even though he had made me what my friend and Clarissa and I had dubbed as skeevies. "Do you have a boyfriend?" No, Mr. Harvey, I said. I swallowed the rest of my Coke, which was a lot, and said, I gotta go, Mr. Harvey. This is a cool place, but I have to go. He stood up and did his hunchback number by the 6 dug-in steps that led to the world. I don't know why you think you're leaving. Now I am in this place I call this wide, wide heaven because it includes all my simplest desires, but also the most humble and grand. The word my grandfather uses is comfort. So there are cakes and pillows and colors galore, but underneath this more obvious patchwork quilt are places like a quiet room where you can go and hold someone's hand and not have to say anything, give no story, make no claim. Where you can live at the edge of your skin for as long as you wish. This wide, wide heaven is about feathered nails and the soft down of new leaves, wild roller coaster rides that take you somewhere you could never have imagined in your small heaven dreams.